Now they are. Now do it
Do
over.
it again. I do that all the time. May 10th, 2016 Town Hall meeting is now called to order. Councilman Baylock will offer the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, please bless this meeting and those attending. Grant us the wisdom to make the best decisions for the benefit of for the overall benefit of our town of Oak Island. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you out tonight. I'm going to start our meeting off with the first public hearing of the evening. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a proposed amendment to Chapter 14, Environment, Article 2, Protection of Sand Dunes, Sea Turtles, and Other Wildlife Habitat, Sand Management Projects to add additional regulations to the Sand Dune Protection Ordinance. Madam Clerk, is there anyone? Oh, Madam Clerk.
I believe all these are signed up for the next public hearing.
There are none for the first?
Just want to make sure that that's correct.
Is that correct?
Anyone signed up for the first public hearing? No? Okay.
I'd like to remind you to state your name, and we appreciate you adhering to the 3-minute time frame. Is that it? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to come out of public meeting, hearing.
Close.
Second.
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Second public hearing.
Madam Mayor, we take action on the first one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I make a motion to approve the amendments to section 14-121, 123, 126 through 132, and 145 through 147 as presented.
Is there any discussion? Have a motion on the floor. Would you second? Thank you.
Question. And Steve, you might can explain this. The property line on oceanfront lot going from the street back, does it go to the mean high water mark?
Not of all Oak Island does. A lot of it was meets and bounds, and plus with the beach renourishment project, there's a general statute that talks about when you raise public trust lands from waters that it remains public trust, and there's a boundary line that was set in place, which was the 2000 survey that the Corps used for delineating the project, the beach nourishment project.
Okay, so,
I'm sorry?
go ahead.
No, but you know, I would have to look at each individual lot to see where their boundaries begin and end.
But there are oceanfront lots that have regular property lines like an interior lot.
Correct.
Okay, my question relating to that is, if you've got your oceanfront, you got your mean high water mark, you have your primary dune, and then your secondary dunes. If that secondary dune impedes the rear portion of a lot, and I know there's some cases where they do, can we control that part of those secondary dunes being on private property?
I believe the general statutes allow us to regulate the land use in that manner, yes.
What general statutes are you referring to?
I need Jake. That's the, yeah, but it's the standard general statute that gives the municipalities enabling act to write ordinance for development.
375, I think.
168, 375.
I think it's 375. I mean, I think I know which one it is. I know that it exists. I just don't know if I have the number, but I think it's 168, 375. But I would agree with that if it's a reasonable land use regulation, like a tree ordinance. Most trees are on private property, but we can regulate that type of thing.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Any questions for Steve? Anyone? Have a motion on the floor. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed likewise. Motion passed unanimously. This time we'll go into public hearing number 2. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive comments on a proposed amendment to Section 14-121, definitions in Section 14-125, use and develop coverage to establish and define the town oceanfront development line, which represents the allowable location of oceanfront development. The proposed line stipulates no structures shall be built seaward of the proposed Oak Island development line except as allowed under CAMA regulations. I can probably already tell you, we need you to come to the front when we get through. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have Tom Buns.
Has there been a motion to open it?
We don't need a motion to open. But our rules state that putting on that agenda counts as a motion to open it. That's our rules state.
Well, first of all, I would say that it's something I'm very unused to doing, speaking like this. But I want to give it a try, and I'm going to time myself, so at 3 minutes, I'm done. What the
Mr.
word
Bunce,
got
would
me-
you state your name, address, please?
Yes, my name is Tom Burns. I'm a longtime resident of Oak Island. I live at 117 Northeast 67th Street. And my family has 2 properties on the beach, on East Beach, 3518 East Beach, a second row home, and then the oceanfront lot next to that, across the street from that resort home we have. And I'm here, first of all, I want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to share and brainstorm on this issue of this development line and try to get something accomplished. You know, sometimes I feel like, you know, in the national language it says the government doesn't work anymore. And I've been dealing with this for 15 years. It started out as an exception to the CAMA line. And I went to Greenville, North Carolina, and made a talk to the Coastal Resource Commission. And here we go. We're trying to get this exception to the CAMA line going. And I would ask some of the staff or whoever was the government then, and we say, how is the exception to the CAMA line? What's going on? And they'd say, well, the Corps of Engineers has got to study it. And it's always some extenuating circumstance. And I don't think the town fought for that exception for the CAMA line like we needed it to be. That's just my opinion. I don't think the town was fighting to get that exception to the CAMA line. And so now we got this development line. I'm hoping and praying that the powers to be can have some sympathy for the folks that have these oceanfront lots. I'm just, you know, I feel like we've been pretty patient on this. This is, I mean, my family's had land down here since the 1900s, I think. Not a whole lot of land. We're not big property owners. But I just want to say publicly that I'm hoping and praying this development line is real. And we forgot about the exception to the CAMA line now. And so we're, you know, hoping and praying that something will happen. And in closing, I just want to share my personal opinion on this room occupancy tax. We got 5% of all the revenue from rental property going into this situation, and we're only giving 2% to the beach renourishment. And my opinion is that a
Mayor,
lot of
that's
that
3
2% has been used for.
That's 3 minutes.
Is my time up?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my stopwatch didn't work. Thank you very much.
And Dara Royal.
Good evening, I'm Darrell Royal. I live at 216 Northeast 47th Street. Nonconformity has many faces on oceanfront property over time. Structure may not meet current coastal construction standards or base flood elevations. Structure's location may not meet current oceanfront setback distances from the first line of stable natural vegetation or the static vegetation line. Structure's location may not meet current front side or rear yard setbacks from property lines. A lot, either vacant or with existing improvements, may not have a viable building envelope. I encourage council to approach the location of a development line with respect to the building envelope created. In other words, what's the maximum square footage of the building footprint? For example, using a 60-foot development line measured from the street side property line with a 15-foot front yard setback from the street would create a 45 by 34-foot building envelope on your typical 50-foot wide lot. That's a 1,530 square foot, one-story building. 3,060, 2 stories, 4,590, 3 stories. According to the 2007 Brunswick County property cards, 26 of the then 478 single-family residential structures with a static vegetation line had a building footprint greater than 1,500 square feet. And 7 had a heated total space with 1 to 2 stories greater than 3,000 feet. But of those 26 and 7 exceptions that would be greater than the building envelope created as I just proposed are on lots that are not standard configuration, and they could still be rebuilt to their current square footage. Also consider potential for infill development, upgrades, or redevelopment built to current coastal construction standards and base flood elevations. For example, 88.7% of those 478 houses were built prior to 1991 and probably don't meet the 6 feet additional base flood elevation that was added to the regulations in that year. Compare that 60-foot development line per lot or block with the static vegetation line, the average structure line, and a 20-foot rear yard setback from the 2,000 mean high water line, and make adjustments accordingly, as appropriate. Compare that resulting development line with a 2016 first line of stable natural vegetation, and see how much time that gives you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to encourage council to continue to take incremental steps to position the town to take advantage of future opportunities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Royal.
And Elizabeth Nelson.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Nelson. I'm with Cape Fear Engineering at 151, Pool Road, Belleville, North Carolina. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Capel family, who has owned property here on Oak Island since the 1940s, and they own property on West Beach Drive. We've reviewed this proposed development line on behalf of them, and we would like to and the family would like to offer any support that the town needs. They're in favor of this development line and would like to offer any support the town may need when you move forward, or if you move forward to CRC, anything that you might need, they'd like to be there. And just as kind of a side note, as far as the first line of vegetation is concerned and the development line as proposed currently with the 85 feet, we have done some due diligence and compared the two, and they're almost identical. So the line that we feel you're proposing right now seems to be a great line, right in line with where the existing development is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's all that's on there.
That's all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed, to close the public hearing. So moved. Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? There can be action on this tonight, if you guys wish to do so.
I'll just state my position, and I know this is a big deal. It's an important thing, and I just don't want to see us. This is the first we've seen of this, and I just don't want to see us rush into this and make hasty decisions. One of the issues that I have, I don't know about the rest of you, but these little maps that are in our book are very, very difficult to understand and very hard to read. And I would like to see something more legible so we can understand what we're looking at before I make a decision on it.
Would you be open to a workshop where we could actually spend and see the bigger maps?
Yeah, that's fine. Anything that'll help us better understand it, because I've talked to two other council members about it this afternoon, and neither of them understand it either, so I'm not by myself.
I'm open to it.
I'd make a motion to set up a workshop so that we can better able to see the larger maps and better understand the difference in the 60-foot and the 85-foot, the vegetation line, the static line, the development line.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second the motion for discussion, and I'd just like to make a comment to those of you that have spoken in favor of this. I'm not against it, but I'm not for it yet either. I want to fully understand it, and I don't. And I think a better map, and I think us sitting down and talking with Jake and Steve in detail about what we're looking at will help us better understand it and make a better decision. And so that's where I am.
Should we have another public hearing on this, or would that be in order?
It's up to you guys.
Good.
Can we set it after the
Once we've had the workshop, we could have another public hearing.
Set it after the workshop,
So would you want to have the second public hearing at the workshop or after the workshop?
workshop.
After the workshop, okay. Do you want to pick a date tonight for the workshop, or do you want us to just try to schedule that later this week? We'll get with everyone.
Yeah, get with everybody, that way we can have time to look, see.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is it?
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed likewise? Thank you. All right, do we have any council reports this evening from anyone? Anyone have a report?
I don't.
I just have one thing. I had a ride-along with the police department a couple of weeks ago when they arrested several of these people involved in break-ins on the island. And it was an eye-opening experience. They did a great job and very professional.
Thank you, Scotty. Anyone else? All right, we'll move right along. We have two guests tonight from the North Carolina or U.S. Coast Guard. One is Engineering Petty Officer Mr. James Meyer, and local flotilla commander of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And if you guys will join me at the podium, we're going to issue a proclamation. Yeah, that'd be great. Come on over. Whereas in 2014, the U.S. Coast Guard data show that there were 4,064 accidents that involved 610 deaths, 2,678 injuries, and approximately $39 million of damage to property as a result of recreational boating accidents. And whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, the equipment, or the environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lost their lives in drowning each year would be alive today if they had worn their life jackets. And whereas today's life jackets are more comfortable, more attractive, and more wearable than styles of years past, and they deserve a fresh look by today's boating public. Therefore, I, Sim Brochure, Mayor of Town of Oak Island, do hereby support the goals of the North American Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2016 as National Safe Boating Week and the start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. In witness thereof, I urge all of those who vote to wear it and practice safe boating habits. Thank you, guys. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm going to let you have that one, and we'll keep a copy. Take care. At this time, we'll move into our public comments section.
Madam Mayor, if we could adjust the agenda.
It's not, I'm sorry, I skip that every time. Is there any adjustments or amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to add, if we could, a new business 4 to schedule a budget workshop to present the budget. And I'm hoping we can do that on this Friday, the 13th. Has to be done at 2 p.m. if everybody's available. Are you going to be available?
What about Monday,
Monday?
Tuesday?
What's the date? I don't have my calendar. What's the date?
Monday is the 16th.
Monday or
Tuesday.
Tuesday would work for me, but Wednesday won't.
Tuesday would be
Can you
better.
do it
Tuesday would be better for me,
Tuesday?
Definitely would be better for me.
Okay, what time Tuesday?
as late in the afternoon as possible, so Jeff doesn't have to get off work, or early,
3?
either.
Is that good?
3 would be fine.
Is that good?
Let's add that to if you want to, you can add that to the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there any adjustments to the consent
If
agenda?
everyone's in agreement, you can add it to the consent agenda and won't have to deal with it in new
That's fine.
business.
Okay,
Okay.
that works.
Thank you.
Is that all the adjustments?
No, Madam Mayor, I would like to move, since we moved that consent agenda, new business number 4, the approval of the contract for services for the shallow draft for discussion.
Of number 3 or 4?
Number
Three.
3 down to new business number 4.
Well, if you're moving it from the consent agenda, it would go right below the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
to
right.
items removed.
Okay.
I want to move number 5 off the consent agenda as well.
It goes right under the last one. Any more? We're good?
Mayor, could I request that you add a committee report from the planning, committee from the planning board to your item number 3 under old business?
Is that appropriate?
He can't, I mean, if someone on the board
Someone on the
adds-
board would have to do that. I will add that to the consent agenda, please.
Oh,
It will go under committee reports.
After 5, I mean, under the consent agenda, I'm sorry. Or do we need to move it to committee reports?
Yes, ma'am.
it'd be number 2 under committee report.
And that's planning board? Okay. Is that it? Entertain a motion at this time to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve as amended.
All in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Okay, at this time, we will enter into the public comments. Please state your name and address, and please remember it's 3 minutes.
We have Bob Jacobs.
Good evening. My name is Bob Jacobs. I'm at 109 Southeast 22nd Street here in Oak Island, and I am the treasurer of the Oak Island Beach Preservation Society. And I'm just here to say we are a voluntary committee branch of Oak Island. We were formed in 1997, and we collect money from memberships and selling T-shirts, and we deposit that money here in Town Hall, and Town Hall, the accounting people here sort of facilitate our usage of the monies that we collect, but we use no taxpayer money in our activities with the Beach Preservation Society. And so we are here, and we are participating in farmers markets where we sell T-shirts and we do other things, and we try to we're here for the turtles and for the sand and for education activities. This past month, we had a fundraising event at the Island Way, and we recognized their service because they allow us to use the Island Way restaurant as a facility to hold their fundraising event. While there, we had a silent auction and a wine tasting event, and so we raised money through the silent auction items that were donated to us by various vendors in Southport and Oak Island. And we, the people who attended had some wine to taste and some light hors d'oeuvres, and it was just a fabulous event. And we just want to report to the town council and to the mayor that we really appreciate the opportunity to have these, to be part of your organization, to be part of the town, and to be able to support the beach. Public Works is using some of the money that we've raised now in the next couple weeks to install and to maintain a couple extra beach rinse stations so that we can have people who come to the island rinse off the sand and the salt. And we just really had a great time, and we hope that we can continue to generate some kind of an income to support our financial growth and development, and to encourage people to watch out for the dunes and watch out for the turtles, and to really preserve our beach. We also had Earth Day, and we had more than 100 local school kids come to a booth at Middleton Park, and we gave them tours. We guided them and talked to them about safety in the ocean and all kinds of neat things. And the kids had a great time, and they signed a pledge to be beach lovers, and they're really impressionable at this age. And it was just a beautiful day, and getting people out there into the ocean and walking along and seeing the beauty, and also seeing some of the cigarette butts and other things is sometimes an eye-opening experience for them. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, and we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Bunce.
Richard Bunce, 125 Northeast 26th Street. There was an interesting article in the Brunswick Beacon on May 6, 2016, on the demise of the utility transfer from Town of Oak Island to Brunswick County. Quote, Representative Eiler said Friday that North Carolina Constitution Section 24(1)(a) limits local, private, and special legislation prohibiting the General Assembly from enacting any local, private, or special act or a resolution relating to health, sanitation, and the abatement of nuisances. Eiler said he tried to convince the Legislative Drafting Division the legislation was about fees, not sanitation, but was unsuccessful and is postponing the effort for now, unquote. I understand that town officials cannot comment on this topic as there is pending litigation over this issue. I note, however, that the local legislation was passed by the previous Democratic Party majority in the state legislature to give 3 state-chartered municipal corporations an additional power to pay for debt service on a wastewater project by charging property owners in the utility service area a sewer treatment fee. I suspect the current Republican Party majority has little interest in maintaining such an arrangement, given their recent views on state-chartered municipal corporations' powers. Whatever the outcome in court, the legislature may end up repealing the local legislation. That would remove roughly $2.5 million from the utility system stream, which would translate to roughly $25 per month increase in the wastewater base rate. If the court should agree with the legislature on the fee, then the amount already collected, which should be north of $10 million at this point, might also have to be refunded. In a related note, any notion of the town using debt for a major beach renourishment project should be placed on the back burner for at least another 20 years while the utility system debt, now staying in the town's name, is repaid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bunce.
Please excuse my phone, Mr. Bunce, I apologize. That was me.
That's all that we had signed up.
That's it. Thank you. Does anyone else need to speak that didn't sign up, came in late? Thank you. At this time, we'll move to the approval of the consent agenda. A motion, please. I will enter a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Charlie. Second. All in favor? Thank you. The first item that was removed from the consent agenda was number 3, Councilman Weinkoff, which is the shallow draft inlet permit.
Yes,
Would you like to
ma'am.
make a motion on that and to go into discussion?
Well, I'd really like to see that if we're gonna have a workshop, let that be part of it, because to me, if we're gonna have beach renourishment and we're gonna have all these plans, there needs to be a set layout plan, exactly what it's gonna take effect. And we need to have money part of that plan, so the council will have some kind of idea of what's gonna be involved in the beach renourishment. We can't keep nickeling and diming every time we go to a meeting, we gotta do this and we gotta do that at the last minute without council having any previous notion, any presentations, and expect us to pass things. And that's just my personal opinion. I mean, there's items, yes, we need to do, but to me, I thought we had this same thing last year, and it was a piggyback with Holden Beach, and Holden Beach got the saying, and we turned that down because the town of Oak Island got nothing out of it. And I'm just under the impression right now, until we get something laid out, a detailed plan, how we're gonna move forward with any kind of beach renourishment, what costs are gonna be affected with it, so we can make reasonable and logical decisions. We don't need to keep adding things to the agenda to be approved until we have some kind of plan.
Is it time sensitive to make a
It's
decision?
not time sensitive necessarily, but I will say that it's separate and apart from beach nourishment. This would be just for dredging for the Lockwood Folly Inlet. And what it is the Corps of Engineers gets the permit. Holden Beach is already on to that permit as a permit holder. We are looking to also be considered a permit holder, so that if the Army Corps of Engineers decides it does not want to dredge a particular year, but the towns feel that it's necessary, what we don't have to do at that point is spend more than $100,000 for an environmental study. So we already have confirmation from the state, and I'll give Mr. Foster credit for that, that we have confirmation that they'll pay 2/3 of the cost, bringing our cost down to slightly over $5,000. So it'll be $5,000 now to potentially save more than $100,000 later if we want to dredge.
I also
And Mr.
spoke-
Foster's here if you have any questions for him.
I also spoke with Ryan Jordan, who is a fisherman who has been working with the county, and said that Steve Stone did a presentation at their county agenda meeting this past week, and they are in the process of appropriating funds for this as well.
So,
Foster. Yes, I would like to hear from you since you're on the committee. Chairman.
I'm Steve Foster. I'm the chairman of the Beach and Inlet Committee. Thank you for an opportunity to speak tonight. I did leave a message for you.
I know I've been tied up in budget meetings at my work.
What this is, to build off of what Ms. Stites had to say, what this is something that started back, and I don't bore the board with all the history on this thing, but it goes back to like 2011. The coastal towns in North Carolina were very concerned about the potential of the Corps getting out of dredging these shallow draft inlets. If they didn't do it, then there's really basically nobody could do it, because they held the general permits on these shallow drafts that the other towns did not have. That's the way it started out, as a navigational issue. Now, this separately, and what we do in accordance with Holden Beach and the county, we pay to get this dredged by the Corps. I don't know if they've been doing it every year now. I haven't checked to see. But in the past, they've done it every year to keep these inlets open so boats can get in and out. So it was a navigational issue at first. So what ended up happening was, we were afraid with these two frail dredges that the Corps has, they're side-cast dredges, which I think we all agree are very ineffective dredges. One was built in 1949, the other was built in 1947. And these babies are about ready to go on their last legs, and the Corps, subsequently, we were afraid of, these towns, that what would happen is that no one would pick up the job navigationally to be able to handle this. Well, the state stepped in, the Division of Coastal Management, and says, let's come up with some kind of an agreement with the Corps. If they do get out of the business of dredging these inlets, that we'll be able to use their permits and be able to contract to get sand out of these inlets so that boats can get in and out. Well, the other part of this was that the general permit would also allow the towns, without going through an extraordinary cost, $500,000 or more, to have to get the environmental impact studies and all the various biological studies that cost so much money that would be a benefit to be able to put the sand on our beaches in addition. So anyway, they went to work, got this together. The town at that time didn't see the advantage in doing this because it was a navigational thing. And frankly, the sand part didn't come up, but it did later on. And we feel like that in our case, we would need to be able to hold this permit, to pull it out of our back pocket. Basically, its cost is $15,000. I talked with the Division of Coastal Management, and they will cover 2/3 of the cost of this thing, which leaves the town's liability, financial liability, of only $5,000. This will be the best $5,000 the town ever spent, period. We're going to save, as Ms. Stites pointed out, we're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in permitting cost, and also we'll be able to keep that inlet open going forward if the Corps gets out. Now, I'm not standing here and telling you they're going to get out next year. It could be 4 years, but eventually they're getting out of this business completely. So that's the importance of it. To sum up, the importance is at a very, very expensive cost. I think Ms. Bell over there checked with our engineer and said it'd be the best $5,000 we've ever spent to be able to get permission to use this sand. And the other part of this, the other advantage, this is inshore sand. This is the cheapest sand that you can use to put on the beaches. If you have to go offshore past the COREG, what they call the COREG sign, my Coast Guard guys are gone, but you got to get ocean-going certified ships to go off to pump this on. This is all sand that's basically there just for the taking, and it's just pennies on the dollar what it would cost for offshore. So does it make financial sense? Yes, it makes great financial sense. So it'd be, I think it'd be to the town's advantage to go ahead and pass this and go ahead and get the process started to get the permit on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Any more questions?
Ms. Bell, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, it was actually Lisa that spoke with Johnny Martin.
Oh, it's
And I will add that. Some of the beach things that we've been doing, the beach plan, the Eastern Channel dredging that we did last year, that has been done with Moffett and Nickel, and Johnny Martin is our engineer there. He understands that we were in a transition period here, and so he did take it upon himself to call me and encourage us to follow up with this and to be a part of this permit, even though his firm is not the engineering firm that we would use. So.
Okay. Anybody, I'd entertain a motion.
I got a question.
Okay.
If the state does stop dredging and we got the permit, it allows us to dredge that channel open? And the cost
But it's not the state, it's the Corps.
or the Corps, and the cost to be, what do you say, close to 100,000?
Well, just for the environmental studies, just to get the permitting at that point.
Have we negotiated with any other towns like Southport, St. James, in case that we have like a coalition that will work together just in case?
I don't know how that would really work, to be honest with you. This is like an independent type of thing for the 5 inlets.
But if we're opening that channel for the boating.
But now that's how it came open, or came to pass, is all these towns were very concerned the Corps was going to get out. So that's sort of their coalition now of what we have, so.
So the benefit would, we would have control of the sand that came from that dredging? We would have control of the sand that came from that dredging?
As long, now let me say this again, if the Corps gets out of the business, which I personally think, and a lot of other people think they're going to get out of, that's when we're able to use this general permit to get sand.
So this is basically just the permit, right? It's not the dredging or the cost of dredging or.
Doesn't obligate us to anything.
Just the permit.
Just get this is get the ticket to go. That's what it is.
And this is 5,000.
Yes.
Okay.
5,000, I think it's 5,000 some change. isn't it?
Change, a little bit change.
Yep.
Less than 6.
Any more questions for Mr. Foster? Any more discussion?
Thank you.
Chair would entertain a motion to,
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract with O'Brien and Gear for engineering services to add the town of Oak Island as a permit holder for dredging the Lockwood Folly Inlet.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, the next item that came off the consent agenda is number 5, Council Member Bale, approval interest for sewer assessment.
Each time we have one of these, it's important for us to look at the background for each one of them. In this gentleman's letter, he is stating that, when he bought the property and went through the closing attorney, that the town gave him permission to pay his sewer assessment in 10 years. He was not the original owner, and that, the original, it wasn't really a contract, it was just an agreement between the town, and the first owner assessment was for the 10 years. Once something is sold, that has to be paid at closing. The 10-year payment allowance did not carry over from property owner to property owner to property owner. In other words, I've been paying on mine, I think I have something like 3 years left. If I sell my house today, I would be required by the attorney, the closing attorney, to pay off that sewer assessment before it could change hands. So there's no way that there had to have been a closing attorney, and they had to have known that the sewer assessment was due at the time of closing. Therefore, I'm making a motion that we do not approve the release of the interest of $1,058.75.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions?
So what you're saying is they would go back, the responsibility goes back to the attorney, the closing attorney?
Correct. Correct.
Wouldn't they have found that in the title search?
Correct.
Then the title company would pay, should
Correct.
pay for it. Okay. All right, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? Likewise, that's unanimous. All right, that was all that was that was removed from the consent agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now we're going into committee reports. I'm going to start with the Water Quality Working Group, Environmental Advisory Board. And I'm sorry, I don't have the name of the person.
Well, they had provided a written report. I'm not sure if they intended
Oh,
to
they
speak
weren't
or
going to give
not.
one? Okay, so then we can go to the Planning Board report. Yours was verbal, correct? You wanted to give it? Got you.
For the record, I'm Ted Manis, Chairman of the Planning Board, 3022 West Beach, Oak Island. Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to basically speak to you this morning or this evening. I stood up because I wanted to make a committee report to you because I think I see a disconnect between the planning board and the council. I'm not saying anything bad about the planning board or any concern about the council, but a disconnect, I think. I'd like to ask your input and explain to you what my concerns are. The planning board is, I think, doing a very, very dedicated job to trying to provide efforts to accomplish those things that are necessarily referred to us by the council or to us by the Development Services Department. When this evening several of you indicated that you were concerned and did not understand the development line issues, that raises a big flag, a red flag for me. In that last meeting, we spent probably, and this was a guesstimate, but I think we spent almost an hour and a half in the planning board on the development line issue. Before that, we had volumes of information which we studied, including those same little maps that you got that are very, very difficult to read, to prepare for that discussion. When we do that, I want to know, as the chairman of the planning board, that after we spend all that time, you guys are getting the information and that you're benefiting from the efforts that we undertake. Now, if in order to accomplish that, it takes me personally coming to each and every one of you and spending an hour individually with each of you after our meetings, before you come to a council meeting some 2 weeks after we have our planning board meeting, I'll do it. I'm more than happy to do it. If it takes having a workshop and me or my vice chairman or other members of the planning board coming to the workshop to give you the benefit of all the input that we have undertaken, I'll do it. We'll do it, and we'll be happy to do it. But we need to make sure somehow that the information that we undertake at the planning board gets to y'all well in advance so that you've got the ability to make a decision at the time and not just try and read something that Jake puts together that comes to you and you don't understand it. Because, I mean, we spend a bunch of time on this. We've had the benefit recently of Mayor Brochure being there, Sheila Bell being there, Charlie Blaylock being there. I know that Jeff has been there in the past. And I just want you to know we're there for you. But the development line, and one of the reasons I want to stand up here is because if you guys have a workshop in the next 2 weeks, I don't think I'm going to have the opportunity to be there because I'm headed out of town for 2 full weeks, and I'm not going to be available. And I wanted to take this opportunity to let you know that that development line was done on one particular basis. We undertook to stretch as much as we reasonably felt we could stretch to get into the development line and into the ability of every conceivable, possible individual lot owner to be able to have rebuildable lots. We pushed it as far as we thought was reasonable to take to the CRC to ask them to approve this. And we also did it in a manner that we wanted to be the first in the door. That's what we did. That's how we did it. Those words are on the record. And specifically, I'm truly disappointed that y'all didn't feel comfortable enough to be able to go forward with it tonight and make sure we're the first in the door. But realistically speaking, I don't want these things happening in the future. So I want y'all to discuss it among yourselves or however, and let me know if it's necessary for me to come to each and every one of you after my planning board meetings. Please let me know that, because I'm willing to do it. I just want y'all to be educated. You are entitled, the citizenry is entitled to have y'all fully understanding the stuff that's coming before you. And it takes us a long time to fully understand it. But we're there pushing Steve hard and pushing Jake hard to make us fully understand it. And sometimes it's going to be literally impossible for Jake to put it in a paragraph or 2 paragraphs so that you can understand it fully at the meeting. And I understand, if I was sitting where you are, I'd be hesitant to just take the word of Jake, who says the planning board passed this, because you don't know what we did. But that's why I try to ask Lisa to make sure that those minutes are fully explanatory. And I go beyond, and at least in my opinion, trying to make sure that the record is clear as to what we do and why we do it. If you have any questions of me now, I'm more than willing to talk to the issue.
Could I respond?
Absolutely.
Candace, let me say, I do appreciate what you guys do. I know you work hard, and I know you spend a lot of time on this. I'm not doubting that. And I saw where I read your approval and what you had said on this issue. But this is the first time we've seen it. I can't attend every planning board meeting.
Oh, I understand that.
And shouldn't have to. And before I'm going to vote on it, I'm going to understand it. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to sit here and vote on it. And that's why I said what I did tonight. And I think the workshop will better help us all understand it. And it'll take a little time, but at least we'll be voting on something that we have clear knowledge of and that we feel good about. I don't know where the rest of you are, but that's where I am.
Is it not possible that in future, when we have something like this undertaken, rather than putting it on the agenda and bringing it forward, there is a presentation made by Jake and Steve and me to make sure y'all fully understand it before anybody even asks you to take a vote on it?
Sure. I think that would
Because
be
at least
wise.
that way, I'd know that the word is getting to you and we got the opportunity to say it. And the reason I stand up for planning, the reason I stand up for a committee report is technically, I'm not entitled to come up here. You got staff to do that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm part of the staff when I'm chairman of the planning board. And if we've got things to present to you, I kind of want to be a part of that. But that's just something that I'd like y'all to mull over and think about.
And Ted, what would help too, for me, is when it comes to y'all, it comes to us too in some kind of format where we can actually be starting to review it the same time of y'all reviewing it.
I think that's a great idea.
Because right now, we don't get it to the last minute. Y'all have already took it up and reviewed it, studied it, and then we have just a few days to go over it and look at it and try to understand it. So if something comes to y'all that's delicate, that y'all are going to review and it takes time, we need that same time. And if we have it, we can start that process.
And if you will, let me ask this. Pick up the phone and call me if you got questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Committee appointments. We have one appointment in this meeting, and it's for the Environmental Advisory Board. It's one term till June 2018. The name is Randy Ollis?
Maybe.
Ollis? I would like to, it's different, you call it,
You just ask for all those in favor of appointing Mr. Ollis.
all of those in favor of appointing Mr. Ollis.
I like the skills that he listed. In
I do too, I'm glad, I do too. I did too.
Now someone has to read out loud.
I'm glad you picked up
All
on
in
it.
favor, please? Unanimous. Administrative reports, do we have any, has anything changed from the time the agenda?
I just had a few things I wanted to mention, if I could.
Go ahead.
We had the Ride the Tide this past weekend. We had 68 participants. This coming weekend, Parks and Rec Department is facilitating some kayak fishing classes. The next comprehensive plan ad hoc committee meeting, they will get started again on June the 7th, and that meeting is at 3 p.m. The UDO, I believe the next meeting for that will not be until July. Is that correct? July 27th? Okay, we'll check that for sure. And the planning board meeting is normally on a Thursday, but in May, it will be on a Friday, May 20th. And that change is just for this month only. It was just a scheduling change with some training that some of the planning board members will be attending. And that's my report.
Any council member? Okay, thank you.
The only thing I have is, how many committees do we have, along with subcommittees? And it was brought to my attention this week that some of our staff are spending an inordinate amount of time with committees and subcommittees, and can you get us a list?
Sure.
And I didn't know about the subcommittees.
Okay. I can
Get
give you a
all of
list.
the,
And I can also give you the committee charges that, for the ones that we have them. Okay.
Could you include in there how many staff members attend the meetings?
Sure.
On an average? Town attorney, do you have any
A
comments?
few items to address in closed session,
Okay,
but nothing
thank
now.
you. We have no old business this month. Turning to the new business, consideration for final plat for Lowe's Food Stores. Jake, would you, oh, where's Jake? Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I've looked at this, and I don't see any serious deviation from what was presented in the beginning. I would make a motion to approve the final plat as submitted in our packet.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? So moved, all in favor.
Well done, Jake.
Sorry, Jake, we don't need you right now. Consideration of a proposal for engineering services from Moffett and Nickel, and that, I think, Jake, you can address, or Steve, one of you can address that if we have any questions. Does anyone want to make a motion on that?
I have a few observations on it.
Okay, go right ahead.
Both of the contracts have similar provisions that the choice of law provision would be the state of California. I'm recommending that North Carolina law govern both of those. Well, I'll take it each, for this one, that be changed. The contract as proposed says California law will govern. I'm saying
We need to correct it.
Change that to North Carolina.
Do we need a consensus for that, Madam Clerk? Do we need, that's just a
well-
no-brainer.
Should council approve the contract, you'll just want to put that into the motion. That'll be contingent upon that change.
And then
I
the
just
other,
have a couple questions about the contract.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Go
I
ahead.
just have one more observation, but I can wait, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
no, go ahead. I'd rather you go ahead.
There was one on their liability being capped at the amount of money they're paid under the contract. I think that, as we've done in all other contracts, index that to their insurance coverage, not to, because these are relative, it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme, I think one's 25,000, one's 75,000. That would be eaten up quickly if something went south. So I suggest you index the cap of their liability to their insurance.
That needs to be put in the motion as well. Okay, Madam Bell, do you have a?
We're considering these separately, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All
Separate
right,
issues.
the $25,000 administrative contract, my understanding is that it is just that, incidentals, on-call, in the event that they need to step in on our behalf for permitting processes or,
Yeah, there are a few things that this could address. For one, Holden Beach has a terminal groin project, and as part of that, they have to have an inlet management plan. And that's something that will involve the town of Oak Island because we have interests in the inlet as well. So they would look out for our interests involved in that. It also, their proposal includes stormwater services as well. I think the Beach and Inlet Committee would recommend that that be considered separately and be a separate contract. We brought forward as it was proposed with the indication that the committee would recommend two separate contracts.
Be well spelled out in the packet what it's for. It says the proposed contract would cover on-call services such as these pertaining to the items above and include support in meeting attendance for potential funding plans, review of documents and meetings pertaining to the Holden Beach Terminal growing, and negotiating with the Corps of Engineers and Holden Beach concerning management of the Lockwood Folly Inlet in the Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway. That's pretty clear, I think. I think that's a cheap price. When it includes our stormwater issues too,
Yeah, that's a big
issue too. So I think that's a.
And hadn't Mr. Martin, hadn't he been doing stuff for us sort of for free? But
He really has. He's been very helpful.
he's answered my phone call as late as 9:30 at night with questions, and I don't think we've seen invoices for that.
We have not.
I wouldn't answer it 9:30 at night.
So basically, it covers a lot of things in
Yeah.
that one. And-
General
and
engineering,
a major
we
one
don't
is
have
the
an engineer on
stormwater
staff, so.
issues we've had this year because of all the rain.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. Make a motion, we approve the contract as presented or approved with the removal of stormwater services and the understanding that a separate proposal would be forthcoming and that this motion would include the changes recommended by our attorney.
Second? All in favor? Unanimous. Number 3, consideration of proposal for engineering services with Moffett and Nickel and its beach monitoring. Say that for me, please, Lisa.
Monitoring.
Madam Mayor, I have the same two observations for the same
Same one.
two provisions.
Page 98.
I would really like to see this one included in the workshop, just because it's such a large contract. I'd like to see all the things that will be covered under the contract, and if we approve the contract for the first year, or are we held to the contract for each year, or is it a separate contract for each year thereafter? In other words, once we start the process, what if we didn't renew it the following year? Would that negate all of the data that is collected the first year?
Mr. Foster can answer.
One second. Did you start off saying you wanted to see a workshop and then?
Yes, I would like to see this included in the workshop, rather than it be denied altogether.
Would you like to make a motion of that, or do we want to continue discussion?
Let's continue discussion here with Mr. Foster.
Okay. Mr. Foster, they'd like to ask you some questions?
I'll be more than happy to. Again, Steve Foster, Chairman of the Beach and Inlet Committee. I believe Ms. Bell's on that committee as well, too. We went through this at our meeting, and we had a rather lengthy, phone call from Mr. Martin with Moffitt and Nickel. This is the building block. This is the foundation of any beach nourishment program. It's know where you have sand, know where you don't have sand, dividing these things up into transects, making sure that they're accurately recorded and what's happening with the transport of sand up and down the beach. This is you can't do anything unless you do this first. Now, we did have Dr. Clary from the University of Florida that did this for a number of years. I think Ms. Royal will remember that. But this wasn't exactly the detailed information that we need to proceed on with the beach nourishment project. I think it was pretty clear in that this is basically doing the survey, the transects, and laying the foundation for this particular project going forward. Now, whether we use it now or whatever the board decides to do with it, this is still information that we're going to have. So I'm not sure what more we could cover in a workshop, but we'll certainly be glad to provide whatever additional information that we need.
I am still in favor of it. I voted for it in the Beach and Inlet Committee, and I'm still in favor of it now. There were some questions about it and spending that much money. Rather than it get voted down completely tonight, I would much prefer to see it brought up in the workshop. That was my point.
Concern. I hope it's not going to be, but I appreciate your concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Appreciate you always being willing to answer questions for us. Any motion? Does anyone make a motion?
Well, I came prepared to vote on this tonight because I think it's important that we move forward with it, but if we need to talk about it in the workshop, I'm good with that too.
I'd like to agree with Ms. Bell. I think including in the workshop from a personal standpoint would help me understand better. So I'd like to see it in there.
Jeff?
We need a motion of some sort.
I move that we include this item, the proposal for engineering services with Moffitt Nichols on-call services be included as an item in the workshop.
No, you're on number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Charles.
Uh-oh, where was I? Which one am I on?
Number 3.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, on page 98.
that's what I just read.
I'm sorry, it should read for the beach monitoring services.
Beach monitoring services.
Beach one, it's a
A mistake?
mistake.
Oh.
No,
good.
you're right.
It's not
We're
me? Okay, good. Make sure that's on the record.
I'll take that one, thanks.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to propose that we move.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the monitoring services from Moffitt and Nichols to the workshop.
For consideration.
For consideration.
Do we have a second? All in favor? All opposed? 4 to 1. All right, thank you. That pretty well concludes the major part of the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed session to consult with our town attorney on pending and potential litigation, and to discuss specific personnel pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, A, 3, and 6.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Calling the town meeting back to order. And I want to state that there was no action taken in closed session. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the interim town manager's contract as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?